Hello everybody, Alzamir here. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for clicking on the video. Today we are going to be talking about the magic of Necromancer. I guess you would call this video part 2. Part 1 would be what's wrong with what's wrong with Magcro. Um, this one would be why is magic and Necromancer at such a disadvantage versus other classes? Like, what is really holding this class down? I mean, truly. So let's dive right on into it. Sit down, grab a snack. Um, I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible, but I mean, this class needs a lot of help, and I really do love the foundation of the class. You know, the dark element of it. But it also has like a little bit of a. It can be great. Like more you can be a good necromancer, blah blah. Anyway, so I really love that aspect of it, which is the reason why I made it my main, even though, well, it is really tough to play. And you'd say, well, why? Okay, well, let's look at Magic and Necromancer versus the new class, Arcanist. Well, right off the bat, the way I theory craft, and maybe I'll do a video on this, but this next part would probably actually be the entire video. When a class comes out or I jump on a class, what I do is I take a look at a lot of different things when I'm trying to figure out, okay, what sets do I go to, what what can I amplify and take advantage of, what is this class good at. I look at damage type, which is it magicka, is it fire, is it frost, does it have a lot of dots, what are the passives, blah blah blah. Well, Arcanist, right? As you all know, Arcanist has, it relies on those beams, those dots, right? So, right off the bat, it already has like, like, like two or three different setups you could do. Now, I'm only talking about the main set. Not talking about your secondary set or back bar set or monster set. Just the main. This is set number 1. You could do deadly, which increases your. I'll get back to this one in a minute. You could do deadly, which increases your dot damage, right? That is a benefit to Necromancer. I mean, to um, Arcanist. You could focus on its damage type, which is Magicka damage. Okay, there's another benefit to Arcanist. There's another build. Put this with another set, blah blah blah. And then, you could even do Soul Shine, which gives benefits to abilities with a cast hammer or channel, which again, Arcanist. So right off the bat, you have three sets that people going to that they could build a viable build off of, whether that's PvV, PvE, but you also have the build that everyone else, that all the top players are doing right now, which is like Vatashron with Master Dual Wield, and and taking advantage of that part of it. So there's 4 different ways you can go with Arcanist right off the bat as soon as it hits live. Thank you, boom. Right? You look at other class, kind of same thing. You could do DK. Well, you could do the up and personal DK with all the melee abilities they have with Flame Lash and Searing Strike and da da da, and really get in there, right? And I'm not even talking about magic and stamina. Like, this is more magic aside, but still, there's multiple builds. You could do on a DK, if you don't want to do that, well, you could do a ranged fire mage. That works out perfectly fine too. Or you could do, let's jump to sorcerer. You could do the pet build, fairly viable, right? Or you could do what everybody does for sorcerer. So why doesn't and just to finalize this kind of every class I can think of has like one to two different has multiple different play styles to it, right? Multiple different sets where you can build off of and go based on the benefits of the class. So where can you go with Necromancer? Well, here's the tough part with Necromancer. And I think that um, Zos kind of put this class at a disadvantage right off the bat because, again, going by how I theory craft very differently. I don't use mathematics and all that stuff. I suck at math. But I look at the class. I look at the class passives. I look at the racial, like what is the race good at that I wanted to do this with, and I go from there. And like, what is the class's theme? Is it dots? Is it burst damage? Is it sustained fighting? Is it mid range fighting? Blah blah blah. Well, if you look immediately, you go, okay, this is flame damage. Okay, this would be frost damage if I had the other morph. Okay, this would be flame damage if I had the other morph. Okay, so two flame. Okay, this is frost damage. Okay, the synergy is frost damage. Okay, this is shock damage. So this is an elemental. This isn't right off the bat. This is an elemental class. Okay. Um, Problem with that, if I could spell, there's only really two sets that benefit from that kind of a setup. Elemental Catalyst, which is in my opinion, or Elemental Succession, which is okay. Um, but also for another reason. Now, the other reason why that Elemental Succession isn't really great is because, well, as a class offensively, a lot of the Magic and Necromancer abilities don't really kind of work in PvP. In PvE, yes, they work. They work really well. Because, well, NPCs are just as stupid as your pets are. So, I mean, when it comes to who's going to win in a fight between an NPC and, your pets, well, it's kind of like just watching two morons duke it out. This is way too slow for PvP. I've had this, like, literally I was PvPing and I saw it like right here. Literally saw it right here. And it was like slow motion. I was like, oh, it's Flame Skull. And I dodged it. The ability was right here. I could see it and I dodged it. That's slow. That's a way too slow projectile. This, while the targeting is a little better than it was when it hit live, it was purely broken. It didn't work. Targeting is better, but it still gets confused and can't be relied upon. This is situational now because this used to be the Harmony Bomb, and this was great. But then they nerfed that to oblivion and back, and then now it's not viable and it's situational. You would use this ability, in small like doorways and small spots and choke points, and that's where you use this ability. This is a passive. In PvP, this is purely a passive because you look at the damage that it supposedly does in PvE, which is 1.9 shock damage. That's going to be almost halved, so you're not going to be hitting people very hard at all. It's a passive ability at most to get this dismember passive going. The only reason, but I don't have it on my bar. This is a really good ability, but the problem is that it can't be relied upon for any duration because, well, players and NPCs, their bodies disappear. And that's what you're tethering to. You can't rely on that. So the whole elemental build is already kind of like, okay, it's already subpar. But that's all the damage that they have here. It's all different kinds of elemental damage. So you can't take advantage of that. Okay, well, you can't take advantage of that. Okay, well, we could use the rapid rot and maybe rely more on dots, right? I mean, it has dots. It doesn't have dots. This is a dot. This is probably considered um, an a direct AOE, if I had to guess. If people know more, I mean, they can correct me down below if you want. But I see this as direct damage AOE. This is a dot, but it's meh. It's such a meh ability. And this is a dot, but again, it's kind of the damage is fine because its damage is the same, really the same as degeneration or this here, but it can't be relied upon because you're tethering to people that eventually respawn. You will never get that 20-second duration of PvP. Almost never. I do love the ability when it does work, but it can't be relied upon. So, okay, so you can't rely on if you're gonna build around the rapid rot dot damage. Well, you can't really rely on that. Okay, so what else do you rely upon? What else is Necromancer good at? Being tanky. I mean, one build that I've worked with for a long time is, well, you could work around in an ultimate build, which I'll link below. I'm pretty sure I have one of those. Um, you know, you could work around that. But, that's very, very niche. And I don't know, I mean, what really hurts is the fact that, I mean, look at my PvP bar. This is my PvP bar. This is my flex spot right now. This is just what I have in my flex spot at the moment. But only one ability is a Necromancer ability. Only one. And this is just because I need some sort of burst. It's just. So you can rely on ultimate. Okay. You do an ultimate build. Necromancers, I think, out of all the classes, build ultimate the fastest. Okay. You could do that. That's pretty viable. I mean, ish. Um, but where else can you go? Well, I mean, you could do a bash build with the other morph of this. Again, niche relies on an ultimate. Maybe you could combine the ultimate build and the bash build. But, you know, there's just not many there's not many different ways you can go with Necromancer. In PvP, as a Necromancer, you are an elementalist. But you can't really rely upon that because, I mean, if you're an elementalist, this is your best spammable, right? Because it does all three elements. And then because you have to fill your bar with Mage's Guild and Destro Staff, Elementals kind of works, but I want to use these. I'm a Necromancer for a reason, right? So I think that's why Necromancer at its core doesn't work, is because the offensive abilities are not great. And if you're trying to think of a build basing around damage type, there aren't many sets in the game that benefit. There's 3 sets in the game that benefit different, the elements, which is, and I'm not talking about, obviously there are sets that focus on fire. There are sets, that focus on frost. There are sets that no, I'm talking about all 3 that focus on all 3 of them. There's only 3 sets. Catalyst, which is a dungeon set. Succession, which drops in Maelstrom Arena and Rothgar. And then the monster set. Where is it? There it is. Alembris, which does only flame or shock. It doesn't do frost. I think it used to do frost, didn't it? Oh. But that's it. That's the only ones you have, and I think that also puts Necromancer at a disadvantage. If they had, where am I? What button am I pressing? If they had a damage type that was all like it was all flame, or it was all magic, or it was something like that, you it would make up for the fact that these abilities aren't great. I mean, as it stands right now, the only real way you could be a do necromancer stuff is if you do like dark convergence, which that got nerfed into the ground too. So that I think that's the reason why necromancer is at such a disadvantage versus other classes, because you could make like a warden, you could do just the animal companions and be like kind of like a druid warden kind of a build. You could do that and be completely viable. You could do a frost mage build like Sub-Zero build and be completely viable. With Templar, Templar is more of a melee, even for magic class, but you could probably get away with a ranged Templar, and it's viable. More viable than this. Every class has a couple of different builds that they can go with, a couple different directions they could go with their builds, if not more, like 4, 5, 6 different ways they can go. Necromancer has 2, which is ultimate build and a bash build. If you're not doing tank, you could do a health tank. I mean, that's something that Necromancer's good at, is tanking and healing. Necromancer's good at healing. But damage, your elemental, which puts you at a disadvantage. Because it doesn't focus on just one damage type. So that sucks. Well, you can't do a dot build because there's no dots. This is a dot, and it's only works in PvE. This is a dot. It only really works in PvE. So you can't do that. You can't go that direction. Necromancer needs help. And I know some people on the forums and stuff I've been reading, people saying, "Oh, maybe you could put major brutality sorcery, or whatever, that way it frees up bar space." And maybe, but what am I going to I'm already struggling for bar space because I can't use any of these. And the thing that puts magic at a disadvantage too is if your class abilities, damage abilities, aren't that fantastic, you can't go anywhere else besides Destro and Mage's Guild. That's it. That's only 2 places you can go, right? But if you're stamina, you can go 2-handed. You can go even, one-handed shield if you want to be risky about it. You can dual wield. You can do bow, but you also have Fighters Guild. You also have Undaunted, really, and that's the advantage that stamina has over Magicka. So anyway, I think I don't think giving Necromancer a buff is going to help. And by buff, I mean what I mentioned before. Sorcery, and because if these don't work, like you could put, let's say they put sorcery on this, on maybe the other morph of this. Okay, I guess, but How does that help me? My damage is already crap in PvP, and I already have sorcery. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. Those are my thoughts on why fundamentally Necromancer is hurting, because you can't build around their damage type because it's way too um if they had more sets that did all the different elements, flame, shock, and frost, I think that would help. I think that would help completely, because now you can use some of these, and even though they're kind of, poopy abilities, well, you have a set that kind of helps that out be less crappy, but all you look at all these, and all I think of is they're all situational. Too slow, too confused, situational, passive, passive. That's not good. And what other classes have too. If you look at even Warden and Arcanist, they have other damage types in other areas. Like other Necromancer really, really, like when they were making Necromancers, they really stuck to damage, tanking, healing. And I think it's the only class that they did this with. Arcanist isn't like that. Warden's not like that. They have some damage in their tanking line. Not really so much with. I mean, if they, I've said before, not only fix this ability for the love of God, but maybe put a dot on it. You know, whatever. Maybe one morph has a dot. What could it hurt? But anyway, I don't know what you guys think. I don't know if Necromancer will ever be in a good spot because of the things I mentioned. If they fix some of these fundamentally, I think it would definitely help. But as of right now, you're better off doing Stamina Necromancer or a Tank Necromancer or even a Healing Necromancer if you do a PvP build. If you do PvE, you can be a Necromancer because NPCs are dumb. Flat out. So, anyway, thank you for joining me, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more content from me. And stay safe and have fun out there.